Hi, and welcome to this week's The Mortgage Broker Broadcast. I'm your host, Craig Skelton. I'm a mortgage business owner, mentor, and coach, and I'm here to help self employed mortgage brokers and business owners build the business that they want. This podcast is made for brokers at every single level, whether you're just starting out in the industry, or you're running your own firm, or you're looking to grow and scale your existing brokerage. And my guest this week is Dave Tindall from DLI Mortgages. And I wanted to get Dave onto the podcast just to talk about his journey into financial services, journey as a mortgage broker and setting up his own firm and business. Came from non-industry, came from a different background. And yeah, I just wanted to explain what challenges faced, how he felt, what thought process he went through. And yeah, just what the first 12 months has been like as a mortgage broker and business owner. So let's just get Dave onto the podcast. So welcome on to the podcast, Dave. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me on.
Good. Thanks for coming onto the podcast. I'm excited to get you on as a guest and sort of chat about you and your business and past and mortgage broking and what you're doing. So, but yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on this sunny August afternoon that we're
Yeah, it's really
recording
good
it.
to be on. It's really good to be on because, as you know, I found you via the podcast. So it's nice to get on for an episode.
Exactly. So, like now, you'll understand how it feels being on the other side rather than the listener side. You're sort of on the interviewee side. So yeah, it'd be good. I'm looking forward to having a chat. So, first of all, without giving too much away, do you want to just do a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, my name's Dave Tindall. I'm now running DLI Mortgages. So I'm based down in Poole, but obviously associated with you, Craig. So I've been in the industry for about 10 months now, 10, 11 months. So did CMAP before that. Bit of a late starter because I'm 38 now. But yeah, really enjoying it so far.
Good. I won't cast yourself. You won't break any records in terms of the 38-year-old into the industry, Dave. But yeah, don't worry. No, it's not a bad age to go self-employed and set your own firm up and deal with the day-to-day challenges of being a mortgage broker. So yeah. So
Yeah,
thanks for that.
absolutely.
Go on. Sorry. No, sorry, I
No,
interrupted you.
absolutely. Yeah, coming into it with a bit more experience has definitely helped.
I think it does have I don't think there's any right or wrong time. I think it's just sort of timing for the individual is the key. As you know, and we talked a lot about that in terms of getting the timing right to do the right things. But in terms of getting into the industry, I just think sort of obviously if you've bought your own home and you're sold and you've got some protection and you've been through a bit of experience, then that does help. So early enough. So yeah. So thanks for agreeing to come on. I'm looking forward to sort of having a chat about you and your background, which and it's always a good place to start in terms of. I know you're sort of, as you said there, you're 10 months into the industry now, but just let's go back a few years. So before broking, what was sort of your day-to-day world? What did that look like?
So before broking, I'd been in the automotive industry my whole career. So
Right.
thought behind that at about 21, 22 years out of uni, 21, 22 years old, was, I like cars. I should go and work with cars. That was about the extent of my career planning. So did that, worked for Vauxhall at their head office up in Luton for a bit, and then came back down to Poole, which is where I'm from originally, and worked for a dealer group in marketing and customer contact and customer experience. And I'd been there about 10 years and just thought, I think I need a change. I think I need to do something else. And yeah, pretty much took a blank sheet of paper and listed what I thought I was good at, what I thought I might enjoy, thought about the life I wanted to lead. And yeah, that led me to thinking about becoming a mortgage broker.
Interesting. Like what else was on the list? I'm interested to look at this now if you can remember.
I, I don't think there was anything else on the list. I mean, I'm sure there's some careers out there that, so many careers, no one grows up wanting to be them, do they? There's all sorts of weird and wonderful things you can do. I think, I guess I've always been more of a kind of numbers person. I was maybe when I was in marketing, I was much more on the sort of data side, but also customer experience, looking after people. So yeah, I guess just having knowledge of the sort of jobs that are out there, and like I said, something I thought I'd enjoy, I'd be good at, something that would enable me to be self-employed and run my own business. So yeah, it was. I don't think anything else was on there. I think it was just something that popped into my head. And yeah, I just went for it. It was quite impulsive for me, actually, because usually I would probably have spent a bit longer deliberating over it and maybe searching through every page on the Indeed website to find every possible job. But no, it sort of just dropped into my head, and here we are.
Exactly. And that's obviously now not a hindsight is a great thing, but it was clearly the right decision. And so in terms of the decision that you made, and it's interesting one with like I say, with regards to marketing, but you're interested more in the data side of things. I'm guessing, which we will go on to talk about the marketing aspect of it. But in terms of from a broker point of view, you're absolutely right. Nobody wakes up, nobody goes to their sort of career sort of choices when you get to the end of your education years and thinks, you know what, I'm going to be a mortgage broker. Somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know anybody that sort of woke up and thought, you know what, that's what I'm going to do with my life. What was was it sort of was it just like the automotive business? Is that sort of where your head lied and your heart?
I honestly just drifted through school and university. I think the reason I mentioned AJs was that for me personally, at that younger age, I just went to school. Then most of my friends were going to college and sixth form, so I did that. Then most of my friends were going to uni back in the days where it wasn't such a financial commitment. So I did that and did a business and marketing degree, so nice and generic. And then, yeah, I had to do a placement year, which was where the sort of car thing started. And yeah, just kind of then went and did a graduate program. And just, as you know, then you're sort of on the conveyor belt, aren't you? And you're just you're in your industry, and, you look at jobs and people will only give you an interview if it's in the related industry usually. And so you just go along with it. And, my career progressed. And I do like cars. I really enjoy cars. I'm not a complete petrol head, but, they're a good product to work with. People would probably look at it now and think, wow, so you were head of marketing involved in cars, and now you're a mortgage broker involved in mortgages. And I'm sure a lot of people would think I've made that decision the wrong way around. But, a bit like mortgages, the car's the product. Like, okay, it's much easier to market when you've got that physical product. It was Audi and Volvo brands I worked for later on. So, you put an Audi R8 or something on social media, it's going to engage a lot more people than a mortgage. But actually, as I sort of thought about it, it was helping people which really appealed to me. When we talk about those careers fairs, actually what you need to zero in on is what gets you ticking as a person. And attracting someone to buy a car is great, and I really enjoyed it. But now I just love, getting onto a call or meeting some first-time buyers, and they've come to you for help. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know anything about the mortgage. They don't know about buying a house or anything like that. And you can help them over, that 2, 3, 4 months. And then you see them get the keys to their first home. And, it's so rewarding, isn't it? I feel much rewarded through that, even though, the product is maybe not quite as glamorous as a nice new car.
I know, but like you say, it's a good, if you're not a petrol head, like you said, but if you are sort of distracted by the shiny things of a new car and the latest model and things like that, then absolutely that is sort of that is a big driver in terms of finding the right choice from a career point of view. But then from a personal point of view, yes, cars are important, and again goes back to the individuals in terms of what their choices are. But homes is like a big choice. That's where you live, where you go home after working day, or where you work from, or what, like the location. All those things are sort of, and I think sometimes we can sort of underestimate that as a broker to think actually these are life changing events. And don't get me wrong, I like you are very interested. I take a keen interest in the automotive industry, for being able to say it. But I think as well, we sort of then sort of take away the fact that actually these are life changing things. If you'd saved for a car, knowing that you still need to borrow 85% of its value, but you were saving hard for the deposit of 15%. You were working hard and you're working hard to then just save for that car, to be able to have that car and drive around in that car, is then the homes is just as, if not more important, because they're the people where, like I said, where they live, where they return home, where they bring the family up, all these sort of choices they make. So I think it's sort of, it's a good analogy to make, because yeah, homes are so like important for everybody.
Yeah, and it's so much more nuanced buying the house, isn't it? Because in the old job, you'd attract people into the showroom, they'd sit down, and the deal could be done within 2 hours. Subject to them liking the car and the finance application.
If only buying a house was that simple, Dave. That's
If only,
that's
yeah, if only. But where it isn't, it's the thing I enjoy about the job is just helping people navigate that journey over a few months, because as you said, it's probably one of the most stressful moments they'll go through, with this amazing payoff at the end because they get into their new house. But the ups and downs they'll experience through that journey are massive. So just being able to guide them and help them through that is, that's what really motivates me to do this job. That's what I love about it.
Absolutely. Just, we didn't sort of touch on, I want to sort of go back a little bit, rewind a little bit, in terms of, you sat down with that piece of paper, you're thinking about this, there is just one job on the list of being a mortgage broker, about being self-employed. So you've gone from years of employment working for large corporations in the motor industry. Like what's sort of like, what's going through your head at the time in terms of thinking, do you know what, I'm gonna put that to one side, kick that to touch a little bit, and think I'm going to go to the insecurity of being self-employed in a totally new industry?
Yeah, I don't know if I was crazy or not. I remember saying to people, they'd say, "Oh, that's brave," and I said something like, "It's either brave or stupid, and my success will be the differentiator." And fortunately, 10 months in now, I think we can lean slightly more towards brave than stupid. But I think part of it was that little itch to do my own thing, to be in control of my own destiny, to run my own business, which I'm sure a lot of people have, not everyone, but a lot of people do. And I just thought, I really want to do that. I really want to be in control of my own journey and my own path. And that was a big part of it. And, the freedom that offers, and the stress, it's, there's no perfect situation, is there? But for me, I've got an 8-year-old daughter. So actually, just the freedom to be able to pick her up from school, not because I need to, because I've got to take her to a dentist appointment, which your employer would be fine with, but just because I want to, because it's a nice day and I want to take her to the park or whatever it may be. So that was kind of a big factor in it. And again, coming new to the industry, I guess I just thought, mortgages, there's a big old market there, isn't there? So actually, with the marketing background, I thought, if I can market myself well, if people are going to like me and trust me, I can put myself out there, and hopefully there's enough people that need a mortgage that they're going to put that trust in me, and I can kind of pick it up and run with it. So there were some scary moments along the way, but I guess I just reached a point in my life and with my employment where I just you just take stock, don't you? Prompted by a few things, and then you just make a decision, and you've either got to make that decision and do it, or you've got to stop thinking about it. And I guess I couldn't stop thinking about it.
I think it's a really good point. And I think, like you said there, there's a lot of people do think about it. A lot of people do want to have all those things that you sort of talked about, and all the benefits of, and the sort of the challenges that you face as well. However, not many people do it. That you are the minority in terms of actually scratching that itch or whatever you want to talk about. A lot of people sort of think about it, talk about it, spend a lot of time dwelling over the decision, but will always come up with some excuse of
Mm.
the time is not right. The timing will the timing will never be 100% perfect. You're never gonna get to the point going, do you know what? Today is the day that I am going to go self-employed. That will never happen because you've still got bills to pay. You've still got income that you need to generate. You've still got all the challenge of everything else. And like, yes, it sounds great being self-employed, like you said about the freedom, but you are. I think the thing is to not to take anything away from yourself because you are the minority in terms of, do you know what, I'm going to do this, and it wasn't stupid. I think, is it like stupidity? Absolutely not. But I think it's just about being brave, and I think I don't know what like I know what my take on it is, and I thought I've spoke about it before, but for you, did you always think? Did you have the thought in your head that going, if this doesn't work, what's the worst that can happen? I just go back into the industry that I've came from because somebody will employ me.
Yeah, exactly that. That's a really good way of putting it, and that's what I thought. I thought I can take this chance now, and if 6 months in, a year in, it's not working out, it's not for me, well, I'll either be able to go back into the industry I was already in, doing the same job, or do you know what? I could probably do a marketing role in financial services from the experience I've got, or, I've just added so much to myself and my knowledge. And having been in my last role for 10 years, that was something I realized I just hadn't really done to sort of push myself. So yeah, exactly that. I realized that at that point I was thinking about a career change, doing a new job anyway. Well, worst case scenario, a year down the line, I just apply for the same jobs I would have been applying for anyway. And, okay, maybe I've spent a bit of savings, but worst case, that itch has been scratched and I know it wasn't for me. And, I'll go back to the employed world, not wondering anymore.
Yeah.
As we said the other day, the opposite to that's probably happened. And my motivation was already high, and now it's probably extremely high on the basis that I'm not sure I could step back into that world anymore. So, once you've gone into it.
I think the thing is, because you've made such a success of it, Dave, I think then you do become detached from the world that you left behind in terms of the employer. And I think that's, you will get, everybody who's self-employed will get to that point of that tip over point going, like, I can't go, but there is that point of no return. Yeah, that there is that
Yeah,
point of no return going. Yeah. So if it doesn't work out and it doesn't go to plan and things do go wrong and that does happen and it can happen. But I think, like you say, it's then knowing that actually, well, I'll just go back to what we're doing before. I've not lost anything. Yes, I might have lost a few pounds in my savings account, but will I have learned something? Absolutely. Will I have sort of be sort of better as a human being? Absolutely. And that itch has been scratched. It's like, well, you can then, I think then you fully embrace the world you go back into, because
yeah,
then actually, I've tried that, didn't work. This is where I am. This is where I'm meant to be. Let me just fully embrace my employed world now with what I'm doing, and look at how you can manufacture the right role within what you're doing as an employed individual, compared to sort of having that thought in your mind. Oh, I always wanted to set my own business up. I always wanted to go self-employed. I always wanted to be a self-employed mortgage broker. Just like you did, like, did you? From what you're saying, like, it's not something that you spent too much time overthinking on.
no, I would say the truth of it was that in terms of my employment and where I'd got to and what I sort of thought about it, it was almost one of those ones that, if I was, I don't know, rating my happiness with my job role and what was going on at a 7 out of 10, maybe I would have just carried on because, you you do, don't you? You can find yourself a little bit on autopilot, but actually, probably I wasn't rating it a 7 out of 10 anymore. And then you sort of pushed into making a bit more of a decision. And, I looked at similar other roles. You could go and do a similar role with maybe a slightly larger company, and you could bump your salary up by 10%, and that's all very nice. But the frustrations I had were always going to be the same frustrations in terms of the employed world. We all know what those can be, and every company is going to have its own challenges, but they're all going to be the same, aren't they? You've always got the same hurdles you've got to overcome. So yeah, I think I just knew I needed to do it. And my wife, as she is now, I do some running, as you know, and I'd thought about it a lot on my own when running, and that's what I tend to do. And I sat down with her one day, and we had a drink. She had a wine, I had a beer, and I just said to her, I've been thinking I might change career and retrain as a mortgage broker and set up my own business. And bless her, she just looked me straight in the eye and said, I think you should do it. There was no hesitation. There was no questioning. She can be a bit of a warrior. So she would have known, what I was saying, in terms of our short-term financial stability and all that kind of stuff. And she didn't hesitate. And having the support of people, her, yourself, once we were, in contact, that makes a big difference as well, because even on the days where you question what you're doing, she'll come home from her job and she'll just say, yeah, you can do it. And yeah, it just gives you that kind of reassurance, doesn't it? We're always going to have some self-doubt, but if you've got people around you that will support you, I guess almost without question, then that really helps as well.
It does, and that I'm very keen on that in terms of having that friends, family, the people that you sort of share your home with, that like your sort of immediate support network. It is important that they do back you in terms of what you're looking to, because when you have those good days or bad days, and you have them all, then they are the ones that will sort of they need to rally around you. But ultimately, from the beginning, they've got to sort of say, yes, you can do it. Yes, you're doing the right thing. Because if you've got somebody who doesn't support you and sort of says, I don't think you should be doing this, but you want to do it anyway, is then like, how quickly does the I told you so come out sort of situation in terms of it. So it is important. And I always sort of say, like, whenever people looking to get into our industry, or even are looking to go self-employed, I'll always sort of say to them, go away, have a chat to your support network, think about the people that are important to you, and then just, do they support you in what you're doing? Because it is so important that you have that ability to have somebody there that when you're facing the challenging days.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and they can look at things objectively, can't they? Because we all have that degree of self-doubt and imposter syndrome and whatever you want to call it. And you start off thinking, can I do this? And they can be quite good to say to you, well, I'm choosing to become a mortgage broker. I'm not inventing a new business. I'm not bringing a new service or product to the market that hasn't already been here. There's plenty of successful mortgage brokers out there. So they can look at it and go, well, if other people are doing it, why can't you do it? And that's the thing, isn't it? We're not reinventing the wheel here.
No.
So yeah, their kind of more impartial view, I think, can really help as well.
Yeah, definitely. So you've got this. So you've decided to be brave. You've got the support of your now wife, and I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the podcast. So congratulations. So
Okay, yeah.
I've got to mention that. So you've got the support. You've been brave. What does sort of like, the question I've got is like, what does day one look like? But is there a day minus 10, minus 20, minus 30? Because the people sort of seem to have different views on that with regards to sort of preparation. But what was day one look like? And we might need to rewind a little bit if there was a bit more work done before.
Yeah, so I suppose I had a 3-month notice period in the previous job. So
there's a minus 90 then. There was a minus.
Yeah,
day
so it was minus
90
days. And I tell you what, the best thing was we had a holiday And I actually gave my notice in on a Friday. We went on holiday at the weekend for a week, and that
Perfect.
was the most relaxing, enjoyable holiday I think I'll ever have, because that sort of weight's lifted. It wasn't yet kind of up and running, and that was great. But yeah, I suppose you start down it, and as you know, you can't really do this job on top of a full-time job, where you can't at all. But it just meant a few things started to happen. I started to talk to people about what I was going to be doing, generating those few kind of early leads and appointments over that kind of 3-month period. And then that meant day one maybe wasn't quite as strange as it might have been, because it wasn't kind of like log in, let's find some clients. I had a few kind of ready to go. But yeah, it was still strange, after all those years getting up on a Monday morning to go to work, to come down into my office here and just log on and think, right, what we're going to do then. But it wasn't a completely cold start, and that sort of got me up and running. But yeah, the early days are a bit strange, because I think it's was it Shawshank Redemption, isn't it, when they come out of the prison and they're sort of institutionalized, and all of a sudden you've got all this freedom you wanted. I think the analogy I used was a bit like being a kid in a sweet shop, isn't it? And then all of a sudden you're told you can have whatever sweets you want, and then you're like, oh, can I?
Where do I start?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's where, for me, some of the confidence I had was in a marketing background. So actually things like social media, things like website, that kind of stuff, I've done that before. So it wasn't learning that as much. I almost had that to sort of fall back on. So I could start kind of putting myself out there and doing all that. And I was fairly comfortable with it. Whereas I guess some people maybe coming from the industry have to learn a bit more about that as they go.
Mm-hmm. That was one of my questions. I've got another something else, but I'll come back to that in a second. But because you've led on to that quite nicely, because that was one of my questions with regards to, do you think the marketing background that you had gave you sort of like a bit of you had no clients, so like you got the odd one or two clients, like you said, but you're starting from zero really in terms of actual clients you've got. Do you think marketing and the marketing background help you to sort of then keep that moving forward, keep building that traction?
Yeah, I think so. I think some of the things about marketing, so maybe not, how you might use social media, because most people know how to use it, and particularly probably those 10 years younger than me, they're so comfortable with it. But I guess strangely, sort of my expectations of it were maybe more realistic. So I knew that it's not a case of, right, I'm going to put a post up on day one and all of a sudden 20 people are going to appear saying I want a mortgage. So kind of knowing that, and actually knowing it's an investment and it's something you just keep consistently doing, keep being there, keep being in people's feeds, keep growing your audience. So I guess that kind of realism about the results, so that actually, in the first 3 months, if I've only had 1 or 2 leads from social media, well, that's fine, because it's just growing and there's people out there, and then it does continue to grow, doesn't it? And each month it kind of builds, and because you haven't given up on it after a couple of months because you've not seen too many results out of it, it just continues on that trajectory. And I think the other thing was the sort of customer experience angle, and how I like to treat people, and how you make sure they're kept up to date with progress. And because a lot of it's a people game as well, isn't it? As we know, the mortgage is the mortgage, but the service you offer people is what will really make the difference.
I think the thing is, like, because you are running your own business and you've got that freedom now, I think it's easier to sort of project your values on what you're doing, rather than being told what your values are of being in the corporate world and being told what the values of the business is, and and then you have, if they're not aligned, then you have to make sure you are aligned with what their values are, because they're the people that are dropping that money into your bank account at the end of every single month. And so, like, you're trading that for your pounds, aren't you? So whereas now it's like you are able to set, and is that important, Dave? Like, in terms of for you, in terms of like your values and your business are very aligned?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I used to not enjoy things like networking or meeting people as kind of a representative of a company, because even though the values might be similar, you're always conscious that you're a reflection of something else. Whereas now, I can't say the wrong thing for my brand because I am my brand. So if I've said it, it's authentic, right? And yeah, when it's your thing, when it's something you own, that passion you have for it, that passion for making sure things are done how you want them to be done, and the right way, that's the motivation, isn't it? To
Mm-hmm.
just, to do that, to treat people the way you think they want to be treated and to give them that service. But to know that the way you're doing that, whether it's your sense of humor or your diligence or whatever, it is you, and that's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm. In terms of like one of the things that I was going to ask you, I moved away from slightly, but I'm going to come back to it now because I'm going to like look at. We've talked about day one, day minus 90, day one. When you sat down, sort of that Monday morning or whenever it was, and you thought, right, I've got nobody. So, how quickly did the guilt kick in, and how quickly did you eventually lose that guilt?
What about the hours that I was working?
Yes,
Or
yes. Sorry, I didn't elaborate a little bit. And then when you smiled, I thought you knew what I was talking about. But thanks for
yeah,
clarifying that. Yeah, the hours that you were working, absolutely.
yeah. I would say that took a good 6 months or so, because you are institutionalized by employment, aren't you? So in my head, working hard means that you're working 45 hours a week from Monday to Friday. And, whether your results are good, bad, or indifferent, if you're doing those 45 hours a week, then, that's working hard. And yeah, it did take a while. So I'd say probably only in the last 3 months or so, as, the business has grown and you can see the results you're getting. And then, the thing that was my issue was that I would, have that bit of guilt if I finished on a Friday at 3 o'clock, but never give myself any credit for, the 2 appointments I'd done on evenings that week, and the Saturday afternoon I went and did an appointment. So I did have to have a bit of a moment of realization to say, no, this is fine. This is part of why you've done this, the freedom. And when you're busy with clients, sometimes you haven't got that choice. But then if you have got the opportunity, as we sit here in August, to finish early on a Friday afternoon or pick my daughter up, as I said, you've got to take it, because otherwise your start point is everything you were already working in the employed world, and then you're adding evenings and weekends onto it as well.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And it is 6 months is quite a good, that's like the normal. To be fair, some people never lose it, but then I think it's like you said, we are institutionalized from our employers. We go for even further back than that. And education, we're sort of being told what to do, where to go, by what time, from a very very young age in terms of education. Or if you as a child being in sort of nursery from like a very young age, and it's even more so. You like parents are getting ready for work and getting you ready to get to nursery from 1 year old. So like it can be it's a long time that you've got those habits that need to be broken. So I think broken in the right way, though, not broken necessarily where you just don't care anymore and thinking, okay, I'm not going to be working, because that doesn't work out for the long term. But for you, 6 months is quite a good time. And like what made me smile there was you sort of said it was down to you. You sort of broke the habits. You was about losing that guilt. It wasn't somebody saying to you, "You need to lose that guilt," or "You need to do this or that." I think with anything like that, it has to come from inside. And it has to come from yourself to think, yeah, nobody's going to pat me on the back for doing that 8 o'clock appointment last night. Or so, like you say, and it's interesting to get your take on thinking you're adding more. So you're still doing the 9 to 5, the 9 to 6, 8 to 6, or whatever the world are used to, and then you're adding on top of that a 6 till 8 o'clock every single day of the week, and then sort of like the weekends then creep in. So yeah, guilt is a good one to lose in the right way, but it's quite important to lose it fairly quickly. And 6 months, generally 6 months is not a bad time to lose it. And I think as well that will help with consistency of income as well, David, leads, and so you can see your
Yeah,
pipeline
definitely.
building and things like that as well. They will help.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think once the early days, you're so desperate to push on, and you think, well, if I'm not where I want to be, I want to get there as quickly as possible. And whilst of course 10 months in I'm not where I ultimately want to be, I'm happy with where I am for the time I've been doing it.
I was going to say
And
I was sorry to interrupt. I was going to say to you, if you look back at now and thought, right, you're 10 months into this, would you have if somebody said to you, right, Dave, just fast forward, and this is what your business is going to look like in 10 months' time, would you have taken that?
100%, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I've, we had a chat about it in the early days and about how things might look. And like I say, despite, what we've said earlier about, making brave decisions, that's not necessarily me. I'm not necessarily a huge risk taker or someone like that. So, I was maybe quite conservative on what I thought I might be able to achieve. And I guess a bit of that can be almost a bit of a defense mechanism. If you set your target somewhere and you don't make it, maybe the way you judge your performance. So maybe I could have been a bit more ambitious on what I initially thought, but as a result, I'm really happy with how the first sort of nearly year's gone. Still needs to grow more. I don't want anyone listening to think, oh, it's completely done and all that kind of stuff. But if I'd have mapped out maybe how year one would look and hopefully how that will go to year two and year three, then really happy with it. And obviously, as you sort of linked them together, that then just helps with that bit of guilt as well, because you can then see the results are coming and think, okay, it doesn't need to be 50 hours a week every week. I can see what's coming. And actually, as we know, sometimes those hours, they're not productive, are they? You're doing them because you think you should. And are you really adding that much value to what you're doing? Maybe not. Maybe you're just sitting working because you think you should.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That you're not working smarter. It's just about putting the hours in, which at the end of the day, that was fine as an employee because you just needed to tick through the hours and go, right, that's my shift over, and I'll collect my check at the end of the month, kind of thing. Whereas this is being self-employed is certainly very different. What if you could do you take where you're at 10 months and and in terms of what you said, it's like you're not the finished article. I don't think any broker business owner will ever be sort of like that. Do you know what? Now I've made it, kind of thing. I'm exactly where I want to be, and it just continues in that kind of way. We're always sort of looking to improve and develop and learn as we grow. But if you could you listened to this podcast before you decided to be brave. If you've got sort of like one thing that you could say, one thing that you could say to yourself. So you're listening to this podcast and you're sat there 12 months ago and you're listening to Dave Tindall, who's DLI Mortgages, and he's what's the one thing that you would say to yourself 12 months ago? Your 12 months ago self, what would you say to them today?
I would probably say back yourself, and if you're willing to work hard and you've got integrity, those two factors I think will take you a long way. I don't think it's you don't need to be the smartest person. You don't even necessarily need to be the best with numbers. But I think if you need to be okay with numbers, just to add, but you don't need to think that you need to be sort of an Oxford or Cambridge graduate in maths to do this job. No. But I think, if you're willing to work hard, you've got integrity, I think that will take you a long way.
Definitely. So you sort of said when you was brave, you wrote down on a piece of paper something that you'd love to. Do you love being like? And that's a bit cliche, but like, do you enjoy doing what you're doing?
I enjoy. Well, no, I love lots of parts of it. There's not going to be any job where you love 100% of it. There's, admin tasks. Every broker will know compliance isn't always the most fun, is it? But the reward you get, if I get a message from a client, or when you see a review go in, or they just say something to you, it just, for me, that's what I absolutely love. when you've delivered that service and you've just made that purchase for them, that mortgage, whatever, you've just made it as stress-free as possible, you've been there for them, just to know the impact you've had on that person, to me, I just that's what I love. That's that bit probably even more than I realized before I started doing this job.
And that's it. Like it is a very good point, because like, you're never gonna. I don't think anybody will always. We're human beings. We'll always find something to moan and whinge about, in terms of what. Even if we've got everything on a plate and it was sort of served up, and we'd still find some sort of something to moan about. However, I think, like you say, you're focusing on the end goal that it is life changing for these individuals. I don't like go back to my point before. Somebody who saved had a lot of consequences, and a lot of sort of they've gone without for quite a period of time to save a deposit for a home, and then they're trusting you with that money. In terms of, I know they're not physically, but it's just they are trusting you with your advice and what you're going to do and what house to buy. Because I know you're very keen in terms of getting involved with the house purchase as well, and sort of talking around that aspect, which is good. It is sort of like these are life-changing decisions for individuals in terms of what they're looking to do. So it is all about trust, but you have to enjoy it. You have to you have to get that motivation to think, you know what, I have helped those people out, and the recognition. And like you've your reviews you've collected already on Google are phenomenal. You obviously display them on your social media. Did you like question I didn't ask about about marketing, which I think I sort of need to get in, because you are the face. You do get behind the camera. You are in front of the camera. Sorry, you are sort of. So you've gone from. I'm guessing you wasn't, unless I've missed the Audi or the Volkswagen sort of campaigns over the last few years. I don't think you were quite the face of the
I
Audi
think they've
campaigns.
got some more famous people available for that. So yeah.
So what was it? So was it always the plan to then think, do you know what, I need to get in front of the camera. People need to see who I am.
No. I didn't. I did. And I was famous in the old job. I never wanted to get in front of the camera for anything. Partly going back to that thing we were saying about you're representing a company, you're not representing yourself. But no, I didn't want to do it. But it's what gets you out there, isn't it? It's what gets people familiar with you. It's what they see. So to me, it was just something I had to do. If you want to take on the responsibility of running your own business, then there's going to be things you have to do to get where you want to be, and that was one of them. So yeah, probably like a lot of brokers, didn't really start off massively wanting to do it. First video was probably pretty shoddy. I mean, some of them probably still are, but you can see how they perform, how many people see them, and it builds that familiarity, doesn't it? It reminds people of your face and what you're doing, and then when they ring you up, they hopefully already feel a bit of a connection to you, and they know a bit about you, rather than maybe just an image that you post that just says, what's the decision in principle, or something like that, which it's not massively going to engage people.
No, it's obviously helping answering questions, but it's not personable, and people want to feel that somebody reaches out to you and books in your diary and turns up to that first appointment. They already know you. They are familiar. They're familiar with you already. You do not know them. They might have filled a bit of form in online, but whereas they feel that they know you already. So that helps to sort of break ground from the start with regards to rapport and everything else, as we know. So I was just interested to get your take, whether it was something you, let's say, I couldn't remember you're the face of Audi, but yeah, I might have missed that bit. So we've covered past, present, sort of any sort of, obviously I know you're only sort of 10 months in, any sort of like plans for sort of like where DLI is going, what are you doing, like where?
Yeah, so I mean, I always said this isn't a business I'm planning to scale up to be, a team of 10, 20 brokers. I've not got into it to almost recreate the corporate environment I've left, even though I would be obviously the one running it.
Or in the corporate environment. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for me, it's not about that. And I think it's hard, it's my brand, it's my business. I think to take that leap of faith to employ someone to represent you, I think would be not what I'm looking for, as long as, I can make it work. However, we have got a plan to bring my wife on board. So she is a fantastic business support administrator type person. Obviously, can't get much closer to me in terms of representing the brand. So,
trust be a big thing there.
yeah, exactly. I trust her more than I trust myself on something. Yeah, it will be an enhancement. So, yeah, the medium term plan is to kind of bring her into the business to help to run the business, but take on some of the administrative tasks as well. And just to form, I guess, a husband and wife team to keep offering that service that I offer, and just to grow it to a level that we're happy with. It's not about becoming the richest mortgage broker out there. That's not what I'm in it for. There's a degree of obviously income I want to earn to support the lifestyle you want to have, but our dream is to be running this business where we're well known for offering this amazing service to people, supporting them through the journey, and it supports some freedom in our lifestyle, so that actually if we want to disappear off to Airbnb at last minute for a long weekend, we can go and do that. And maybe we take the laptop because there's work to do, or maybe we don't because we can do that because we've got a bit of time. But part of this decision was looking at that kind of medium to long term. How can our life look, over the next 10, 20 years? How does that interact with our careers? And yeah, that's kind of our dream. I say all that, and then I know there's still a teeny tiny chance that in 10 years, if, I'm saying like I was with the old job 10 years in, that I think, well, now I want to do something else and grow it bigger or move into a new area. But yeah, realistically, that's kind of how the next couple of years looks for us.
No, thanks for sharing. I think, like I say, it would working with somebody that you know and trust, and creating that whole work-life balance is a whole new level in terms of if you very much. And there is a few people that spring to mind when you sort of said about that. There is a few people that I know who have gone down exactly the same route as you have, in terms of then created that whole family business, which has then sort of reaped benefits because of that whole. That's just talking about that, and people buy into that a little bit more because of that sort of the thing that you've sort of created. So no, fair play, mate. And although even if you do get an itch thinking of something else in 10 years' time, we've got plenty of things in our industry, equity release, we've got full financial advising. There's plenty of things you sort of can do that are just as boring as mortgages. No, I'm joking. So, and then that is a different aspect altogether. So, but Dave, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming onto the podcast and agreeing to come on finally. And it's been good to have a chat and get to and go through sort of like and taking you down that road of the past and why you got into this and those thoughts and feelings. And I really appreciate you trusting me with no agenda. And but like I said, I genuinely do appreciate you sharing the sort of where you've been and a little bit of the future as well, which is all good. So thanks very much.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Craig. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for that. Thanks for agreeing to come on to your first podcast and sharing your experiences and the challenges and the real world of what you faced within the change of industry, change of career, why you did it. So, yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and really giving an honest account of how the journey's been for you so far. And if you found today's episode then useful, please don't forget to follow the podcast, leave a review, and share it with other mortgage brokers that you feel need to hear the messages that come from this podcast. And if you are thinking about becoming a self-employed mortgage broker or looking to set up your own brand of business, or you're looking to scale and grow your existing business, please see my website, craigskelton.co.uk, book in a discovery call, or just send me a WhatsApp and let's have a chat about how I can help you achieve your goals for the rest of 2025 and beyond that. And always, please don't forget to run your own race.